Welcome, I'm John, and today I'm going to tell you an exciting story. They called the boy a problem until the cleaning lady saw what no one else wanted to see. The sprawling Miller estate sat perched on the hills of Beverly Hills like a crown jewel, its white Mediterranean facade gleaming under the California sun. Perfectly manicured hedges lined the circular driveway, where a fountain featuring marble cherubs perpetually sprayed crystal-clear water into the air. From the outside, it looked like paradise, a testament to success, power, and the American dream realized. Inside, it was a mausoleum. 9-year-old Jason Miller stood in the center of his bedroom, a space larger than most family apartments. Shelves groaned under the weight of unopened toys still in their packaging, remote control cars, gaming consoles, collectible action figures that cost more than some people earned in a month. His bed, king-sized and draped in Egyptian cotton sheets, sat untouched. Jason preferred the floor, specifically the corner behind his antique dresser, where the shadows gathered and no one thought to look. A crash echoed through the hallway. Jason had thrown his breakfast tray against the wall. Scrambled eggs, imported from some organic farm his mother insisted on, now dripped down the cream-colored paint. The crystal glass had shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces across the hardwood floor. Jason Michael Miller. Claire Miller's voice pierced through the house, sharp and cold as a scalpel. Her heels clicked an angry rhythm as she approached his room. She appeared in the doorway, immaculate in her Chanel suit, her blonde hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face. "Do you have any idea how much that glass cost?" Jason didn't answer. He stared at the broken shards, watching how they caught the morning light. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." Claire's perfectly manicured fingers gripped her phone. Always her phone. That glowing rectangle that commanded more attention than her own son. "I don't have time for this. I have a meeting with the Hong Kong investors in 40 minutes, and your father is already at the office. Mrs. Patterson will be here soon." Mrs. Patterson, the 5th private tutor this semester. The others had quit, each offering polite excuses that barely masked their relief at escaping. "I don't want Mrs. Patterson," Jason said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Excuse me. I said I don't want—" "I heard what you said." Claire's tone could freeze fire. "What you want is irrelevant. Mrs. Patterson comes highly recommended. Stanford graduate. Specializes in difficult children." She paused, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Children like you. Difficult. Problem child. Uncontrollable. Spoiled brat." Jason had heard all the words, whispered by therapists, tutors, even the gardener once. They thought he couldn't hear. They thought he didn't understand. But he understood everything, especially what they didn't say. That he was too much trouble. That something was wrong with him. That he was unlovable. "Maria will clean this mess," Claire said, already turning away, her attention returning to her phone. "And Jason, Dr. Weinstein wants to try a new medication. We'll discuss it tonight. Maybe." She left without looking back. She never looked back. Jason listened to her heels fade down the marble staircase, followed by the opening and closing of the front door, then the purr of her Mercedes as it disappeared down the driveway. The house settled into its familiar silence, the kind that pressed against your ears and made you feel like you were underwater. He walked to his window, pressing his forehead against the cool glass. Beyond the infinity pool, beyond the tennis court his parents never used, the city of Los Angeles sprawled out like a glittering promise. Millions of people out there, living their lives, laughing, connecting. And here he was, alone in a castle made of money and indifference. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Jason?" The voice was gentle, accented with the warm cadence of Spanish. "I'm coming in to clean, okay?" Maria Lopez pushed open the door, her cleaning cart squeaking slightly. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. Her uniform, a simple gray dress, was neat but worn, the hem carefully mended in places. She surveyed the mess without judgment, without the exasperated sighs or disappointed headshakes Jason had come to expect from everyone else. "Breakfast not good today?" she asked simply, kneeling to pick up the larger pieces of glass. Jason watched her, surprised. She wasn't lecturing him, wasn't calling him names, just asking. "I wasn't hungry," he mumbled. Maria nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "Sometimes I'm not hungry either, especially when I'm feeling lonely." The word hung in the air between them, Lonely. Jason's throat tightened. No one had ever said that word to him before. No one had ever suggested that maybe, just maybe, there was a reason behind the broken dishes and the screaming and the tears no one bothered to see. Maria continued cleaning, humming softly under her breath, a Spanish melody Jason didn't recognize but somehow found comforting. For the first time in months, Jason didn't retreat to his corner. He stayed, watching the woman who was paid to be invisible, wondering why she felt more real than anyone else in his life. Maria had worked in many houses during her 3 years in Los Angeles, but the Miller estate was different, not because of its size or luxury. She'd scrubbed marble floors in mansions that could house a small village. What made this house different was its emptiness. Empty rooms, empty conversations, empty eyes, especially Jason's eyes. She'd noticed him the first week, watching her from doorways, disappearing when she turned to look, a small ghost haunting his own home. The Millers had briefed her during the interview, their only direct conversation in 6 months of employment. "Our son has behavioral issues," David Miller had said, his jaw tight. "Don't engage with him. Don't encourage his tantrums. You're here to maintain the house, nothing more," Claire had added, barely glancing up from her tablet. "He's seeing specialists, top psychologists. He doesn't need—" She'd waved her hand dismissively at Maria. "Anything else?" Maria had nodded. Taken the job, she needed the money, needed to send something back to her mother in Guadalajara, and promised herself she'd follow their rules. But that was before she'd found Jason crying behind the curtain in the playroom. It had been a Tuesday afternoon. The Millers were both out. They were always out. Maria was vacuuming the third-floor hallway when she heard it, a small muffled sound, like a wounded animal trying not to be heard. She'd followed the noise to the playroom, a vast space filled with thousands of dollars worth of toys that looked like they'd never been touched. The sound came from behind the velvet drapes. Maria had hesitated. The Millers. Words echoed in her mind. Don't engage. But the sound, that heartbreaking, lonely sound, pulled at something deep in her chest. She thought of her younger brother, Miguel, how he used to cry like that after their father left. She'd pulled back the curtain slowly. Jason was curled into a ball, his thin arms wrapped around his knees, his face buried, his small body shook with silent sobs. Maria didn't think. She just acted. She knelt down on the floor beside him, her knees protesting against the hard wood. She didn't touch him, didn't want to startle him, but she sat there, close enough that he'd know he wasn't alone. "It's okay," she'd whispered in Spanish, then translated. "Está bien. You can cry." Jason had lifted his head, his face blotchy and wet, his eyes wide with surprise. You're not supposed to talk to me." "I know," Maria said simply. "You'll get in trouble. Maybe." They'd sat there in silence for several minutes. Jason's breathing slowly calmed. Maria began humming, the same song her mother used to sing when Maria was homesick, when the weight of being undocumented, of being invisible, felt too heavy to bear. Jason had uncurled slightly, listening. "What's that song?" he finally asked. "It's called Cielito Lindo. My mama sang it to me when I was sad." "It means lovely little sky." Maria smiled softly. She said even when everything feels dark, there's still something beautiful if you look for it. "I don't think there's anything beautiful here," Jason said, his voice small. Maria's heart cracked. She looked around the playroom, at the expensive toys, the custom murals, the chandelier that probably cost more than she'd earn in 5 years. All of it meaningless to this child who had everything and nothing. "You're beautiful," Maria said quietly. "You're here. That's something." Jason stared at her as if she'd spoken in another language, which, in a way, she had. The language of seeing someone, really seeing them. That had been 3 weeks ago. Now, as Maria cleaned up the breakfast mess, she watched Jason from the corner of her eye. He hadn't moved from the window, his small frame silhouetted against the bright California morning. His shoulders were hunched, defensive, expecting nothing, expecting to be disappointed again. Maria finished sweeping up the glass and began wiping the wall. As she worked, she started humming Cielito Lindo again. She saw Jason's shoulders relax slightly. "Maria," his voice was tentative. "Yes? Do you have to leave right after you clean?" Maria paused. She had the 3rd floor to vacuum, the master bathroom to scrub, the kitchen to organize. Her schedule was packed. Mrs. Miller had been very specific about efficiency, but she looked at Jason, at this small boy who was asking, in his own way, for the one thing his parents' money couldn't buy. "I have a few minutes," Maria said. "Would you like to tell me about your drawing?" She'd noticed the sketchbook on his desk, filled with dark, angry scribbles. But underneath those scribbles, if you looked carefully, were shapes, faces, hands reaching out. Jason turned from the window, surprise flickering across his face. You want to see?" "I do." For the first time since she'd entered the room, Jason smiled. It was small, uncertain, like a flower trying to bloom in concrete, but it was real, and Maria decided, in that moment, that no matter what the Millers said, no matter what rules she was supposed to follow, she would not make this child invisible too. Some things mattered more than keeping a job. Some things mattered more than being safe. The sketchbook was worn at the edges, its cover decorated with stickers that had begun to peel. Jason carried it to the small table by the window, handling it like something precious and fragile. Maria pulled up a chair, keeping a respectful distance, letting him control the moment. "Most of them are stupid," Jason said quickly, defensively, before opening the book. "The therapist, Dr. Weinstein, he said I should draw my feelings, but I don't think he actually looks at them." "I will look," Maria promised. Jason flipped open the cover. The first pages were indeed filled with black scribbles, violent slashes of marker that had torn through the paper in places. But as Maria had suspected, there was more underneath. In one corner, barely visible beneath the chaos, was a small house. In another, a figure standing alone, surrounded by empty space. "This one," Jason said, turning to a page near the middle, "is from last month." It was a drawing of the mansion, rendered with surprising detail for a 9-year-old. Every window was precisely placed, the fountain meticulously sketched, but all the windows were dark, empty rectangles. And in the front, 2 stick figures, clearly meant to be his parents, were walking away, their backs to the house. Maria's throat tightened. "You're very talented, Jason." "That's not the point," he said, his voice harder now. "The point is, they're always leaving. Always. Even when they're here, they're not really here." He flipped to another page. "This is my dad." The drawing showed a man in a suit, but where his face should have been, Jason had drawn a phone. "And this is my mom." A woman in heels, her face replaced by a laptop. Maria didn't know what to say. The truth was too painful to speak aloud. "You're right. They don't see you." But lies wouldn't help him either. "Sometimes," Maria said carefully, "people forget what's important. They get so busy with work and money and looking successful that they forget about the real things, the things that matter." "Like what?" "Like love, like being present, like noticing when someone needs you." Jason studied her face, as if searching for deception. "Is that why you came to America? For the important things?" The question caught Maria off guard. No one in this house had ever asked her about herself. She was furniture, background, invisible. "I came to help my family," Maria said honestly. "My mama is sick. She needs medicine. And in Mexico, we couldn't afford it. So I came here to work, to send money home." She paused. "I miss them every day, but I know I'm doing something that matters." "Do they know?" "That you miss them?" "Yes. I call them every Sunday, and I write letters." Jason absorbed this information, his brow furrowed. "My parents are in the same house as me, and I never talk to them." "Not really." He looked down at his sketchbook. "Maybe if I was sick, like your mama, they'd pay attention." "Jason, no. I'm not saying I want to be sick," he clarified quickly. "I just mean, at least then there'd be a reason they could understand." "But there's nothing wrong with me. Not really. So they just think I'm bad." Maria reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he wanted. When he didn't, she placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "You're not bad. You're hurting. Those are different things." His eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them back furiously. "Mrs. Patterson says I need discipline. Dr. Weinstein says I need medication. My parents say I need to try harder." His voice cracked. "But nobody asks what I need. Nobody asks me anything. I'm asking," Maria said softly. "What do you need, Jason?" The question hung in the air between them. Outside, a gardener's leaf blower started up, its mechanical whine a harsh intrusion. Inside, Jason struggled with an answer, his young face contorting with the effort of putting feelings into words. "I need," he started, then stopped, started again. "I need someone to stay." Everyone leaves. The tutors leave. The therapists leave. My parents leave even when they're standing right in front of me. He looked up at Maria with eyes far too old for his age. Will you leave too? Maria's heart shattered and mended in the same moment. She thought of her precarious position, her lack of papers, how easily she could be dismissed. She thought of the Millers, warnings, their rules, their expectations. Then she thought of her brother Miguel, and how a kind teacher had once stayed after school to tutor him when everyone else had given up. That teacher had changed Miguel's life. "I'm not going anywhere," Maria said, and she meant it. Jason's face crumpled. He leaned forward, and Maria wrapped her arms around him as he finally let himself cry, really cry, not the silent, hidden tears of the playroom, but the deep, wrenching sobs of a child who had been holding everything in for far too long. She held him, rocking slightly, humming Cielito Lindo, while his tears soaked through her uniform. Outside, the leaf blower continued its noise. Inside, something began to heal. The days that followed became a carefully choreographed dance of stolen moments and secret kindnesses. Maria arrived each morning at 7:30, entering through the service entrance as always. She'd punch in her time card, gather her supplies, and begin her rounds through the empty mansion. But now, there was a difference. Now, she left small gifts. A note tucked under Jason's pillow, written in her careful English, "You are brave." A smooth stone from the garden, painted with a simple smiley face, placed on his nightstand. A piece of pan dulce, sweet bread from the Mexican bakery near her apartment, wrapped in napkin and hidden in his desk drawer. Jason began leaving his own messages. A drawing of a woman who looked like Maria, with a speech bubble that said, "Thank you." A origami crane he'd learned to fold from a YouTube video, its wings creased with painstaking precision. Once, simply the word "stay" written on a post-it note stuck to her cleaning cart. They didn't always talk. Sometimes Maria would clean his room while he did homework, and the comfortable silence between them was enough. Other times, Jason would follow her through the house, sitting on the floor of whatever room she was working in, telling her about his day in fragments and half-sentences. "Mrs. Patterson says I'm not applying myself," he mentioned one afternoon while Maria dusted the library. "She says I'm capable of A's if I just focus." "Are you focusing?" Maria asked, running her cloth along the spines of leather-bound books that no one ever read. "I don't know. I try to, but my brain keeps going to other places." He picked at a loose thread on his jeans. "She doesn't make it interesting. She just talks and talks, and I'm supposed to listen and remember everything, but I can't." Maria paused in her work. "Everyone learns different ways. Maybe you need to move while you learn, or draw pictures, or talk about it out loud." "That's what I said. But she told me to sit still and pay attention like a normal child." Jason's voice carried the sting of those words. "Normal," Maria repeated, testing the word. "You know what I think about normal?" "What?" "I think normal is boring. I think normal is what people say when they don't want to understand someone different from them." She moved to the next shelf. "You know who else wasn't normal? Einstein, Frida Kahlo, Mozart. All the people who changed the world, they weren't normal." Jason considered this, a small smile playing at his lips. "My parents want me to be normal. Your parents want things to be easy," Maria corrected gently. "But easy and good aren't the same thing." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Both of them froze. It was only 2 in the afternoon. The Millers never came home this early. "Oh, Jason," Claire Miller's voice echoed through the foyer. "Jason, where are you?" Maria and Jason exchanged glances. "You should go," Maria whispered. "I'll finish here." But Jason hesitated. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," Maria confirmed. He ran from the library, and Maria heard his footsteps on the marble stairs, heard Claire's sharp, "Don't run in the house," then muffled voices from the second floor. Maria continued dusting, trying to make herself even more invisible than usual. She was nearly finished with the library when Claire appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Maria." "Yes, Mrs. Miller." Maria kept her eyes down, respectful, the way she'd learned to survive in houses like this. "Have you been—" Claire paused, searching for words. "Have you been spending time with Jason?" Maria's heart hammered. She could lose everything with the wrong answer. Her job, her income, her ability to help her mother. But she thought of Jason's tear-stained face, his desperate question, "Will you leave too?" "Sometimes he talks to me while I clean," Maria said carefully. "I listen." That's all. That's all? Claire's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. His tutor mentioned that he's been different lately, less confrontational. She asked if anything had changed at home. The way she said home carried a bitter irony, as if she knew this house was anything but. Maria waited, her dust cloth clutched in her hands. Dr. Weinstein also noticed, Claire continued. Jason's been more cooperative in their sessions, more willing to engage. She studied Maria with an intensity that made Maria want to disappear. What exactly have you been doing? Just being kind, Mrs. Miller. Nothing more. Claire's jaw tightened. Something flickered across her face. Was it gratitude? Resentment? Shame? Maria couldn't tell. I pay you to clean, not to be his friend, Claire said finally, but her voice lacked its usual steel. She sounded tired, lost. I know, Mrs. Miller. He's a complicated child. You don't understand the challenges we face, the specialists we've consulted, the money we've spent. I understand he's lonely, Maria said quietly, the words escaping before she could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. Maria had crossed a line, and they both knew it. Claire's face flushed, her mouth opening to deliver what would surely be a devastating reprimand. But then, from upstairs, they heard it. Jason laughing, actually laughing. A sound so rare in this house that both women looked up at the ceiling in surprise. Claire's expression crumbled, just for a moment, just long enough for Maria to see the mother buried beneath the business executive, the woman who perhaps knew exactly what her son needed and hated herself for being unable to provide it. Just don't interfere with his schedule, Claire said finally, her voice hoarse. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking a retreat. Maria released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Upstairs, Jason was still laughing. The fragile peace lasted exactly 11 days. Maria marked them in her mind like counting precious coins. 11 mornings of Jason meeting her with a shy smile. 11 afternoons of watching him slowly emerge from his shell. 11 evenings of going home to her cramped studio apartment, feeling like she'd done something meaningful. On the 12th day, everything changed. It started with music. Maria had been cleaning the kitchen, her phone propped on the counter playing a playlist from home. A song came on, one of her favorites, a romantic ballad her parents used to dance to in their tiny living room. Without thinking, she began singing along softly in Spanish, swaying slightly as she wiped down the granite countertops. That's pretty. She spun around. Jason stood in the doorway, still in his pajamas even though it was nearly noon. Mrs. Patterson had called in sick, and the Millers were both in San Francisco for some business conference, not due back until tomorrow. You scared me, Maria said, laughing, pressing a hand to her chest. Sorry, can you teach me the words? To the song. Yeah, I want to learn Spanish. Jason padded into the kitchen, climbing onto one of the bar stools. I tried using an app, but it's boring. You make it sound, I don't know, real. Maria felt a warmth spread through her chest. Okay, but first, have you eaten breakfast? Jason shrugged, which Maria had learned meant no. How about I teach you Spanish and teach you to cook at the same time? His eyes widened. My mom would. Your mom isn't here, Maria said gently, and everyone should know how to make eggs. Come on. What followed was perhaps the most joyful hour Maria had experienced since arriving in America. She taught Jason how to crack eggs, laughing when he got shell fragments in the bowl. She showed him how to whisk them with a fork, explaining that huevos meant eggs and tenedor meant fork. She let him pour the mixture into the pan, standing close enough to catch him if he stumbled but far enough to let him feel independent. Now we add a little salt, Sally, Maria instructed. And pepper. Pimienta. Pimienta, Jason repeated carefully, concentrating hard on the pronunciation. Perfect. You're a natural. They sat together at the kitchen island, something Maria would never normally do, eating scrambled eggs that were slightly overcooked but tasted, Jason declared, like the best thing ever. That's because you made them yourself, Maria said. Food always tastes better when you make it with love. Is that why your sweetbread is so good? Maria smiled. Mi abuela, my grandmother, she taught me to bake. She said cooking is how we show people we care. Every recipe is like a hug you can taste. I wish I could meet her. Me too. She died when I was 15, but I still use her recipes. That way, she's still with me somehow. Maria traced the rim of her coffee cup. That's the thing about love, Jason. It doesn't disappear when people leave. It stays in the things they taught you. The memories they gave you. Jason was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. Then, my parents never taught me anything. Not really. They just hire people to do it. They taught you other things, maybe. Things you don't realize yet. Like what? Maria searched for an answer that wouldn't be a lie. Like determination. Your father built a company from nothing. Your mother broke barriers in her field. They know how to work hard. But they don't know how to be parents, Jason said flatly. That's what Dr. Weinstein told them. I heard them arguing about it last week. He said they need to be more present, and my dad said he's building a future for me, and my mom said she's doing her best, and then they both just stopped talking about it. Maria's heart ached. Jason, it's okay. I'm used to it. But his voice cracked slightly on the last word. He pushed his plate away. Can we do something? Play a game or watch a movie? Anything. I don't want to think about them right now. What about your homework? It's Friday, and Mrs. Patterson is sick. Please. Maria knew she should say no, should maintain boundaries, should stick to her job description. But she looked at this child, this lonely, hurting child who asked for so little, and found herself nodding. One movie. But then I have to finish my work, okay? Jason's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? Really? What do you want to watch? They settled on an animated film about a lost toy finding its way home. Maria sat on one end of the leather couch in the home theater, Jason on the other, a respectful distance between them. But as the movie progressed, he gradually scooted closer, until finally his head rested against her shoulder. Maria didn't move, barely breathed. She felt the weight of his trust, the enormity of this small gesture. Outside, the Los Angeles sun blazed down on perfectly trimmed lawns and luxury cars. Inside, in the darkness of the theater, a housekeeper and a problem child found something that all the money in Beverly Hills couldn't buy. They found family. The photograph was taken by accident. Maria had been showing Jason pictures of her family in Mexico on her phone. Her mother standing in front of their modest house, her brother Miguel at his graduation, her niece's birthday party. Jason had been fascinated, asking questions about each person, wanting to know their stories. Can I see your apartment? He'd asked. Where you live here? Maria had hesitated, then scrolled to a photo she'd sent her mother last month, a simple snapshot of her studio, showing her pride in the small space she'd made home. A cot with a handmade quilt, a hot plate, a picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe on the wall. It's tiny, she'd said, smaller than your bathroom. Jason had studied the image seriously. It looks cozy, like it has love in it. And that's when it happened. Jason had reached for the phone to zoom in, accidentally pressing the camera button instead. The shutter clicked, capturing the two of them together. Maria smiling, Jason leaning against her shoulder, both of them sitting on the floor of his bedroom surrounded by his drawings. They'd laughed about it. Jason had asked if he could keep the photo. Maria had texted it to him without thinking twice. She should have thought twice. 3 days later, Claire Miller discovered it. Jason had left his iPad on the kitchen counter, the photo app open. Claire had glanced at the screen while grabbing her morning coffee, probably expecting to see nothing more interesting than screenshots of video games. Instead, she saw her son, her distant, difficult son, looking genuinely happy in the arms of the hired help. Maria was in the laundry room, folding towels and humming, when she heard her name being called. Not the usual dismissive Maria tossed over a shoulder, but a sharp, furious summoning that made her blood run cold. She found Claire in the kitchen, the iPad gripped in her white-knuckled hand. Mrs. Miller? What is this? Claire thrust the screen forward, the photograph enlarged to fill the display. Maria's mouth went dry. Jason and we were just talking. He was showing me his drawings. His drawings. Claire's laugh was harsh, brittle. You were in his bedroom, sitting on the floor with him. Like you're his friend. Like you're his... She couldn't seem to finish the sentence. I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller. I know I should have maintained more distance. Distance? Claire's voice rose. You think this is about distance? Look at him. She shoved the iPad closer. Look at how he's looking at you, like you're his mother, Maria thought, but didn't dare say. Claire's hands trembled. She set down the iPad and pressed her palms against the marble countertop, her breath coming in short gasps. For a moment, Maria thought she might cry. I've given him everything, Claire whispered. Everything. The best schools, the best doctors, the best therapists. I work 16-hour days to provide for him, to build a future for him. And you? She looked up, her eyes blazing with something that wasn't quite anger. It was deeper than that. Rawer. You show up with your mop and your broken English and your stupid songs, and suddenly he's fixed. Is that it? I'm supposed to believe that. He's not fixed, Mrs. Miller. He's just... Don't. Claire held up a hand. Don't tell me about my own son. You don't know him. You don't know what we've been through, what we've tried. You have no idea. You're right. Maria kept her voice steady, even as her heart hammered. And I don't know everything, but I know what I see. And I see a little boy who needs... What? What does he need that I haven't given him? The question hung between them, loaded and dangerous. Maria knew the answer. They both did, but saying it out loud would detonate everything. Mrs. Miller, Maria began carefully, I'm not trying to take your place. I'm not trying to be anything except kind to a child who's hurting. He's not hurting. He's spoiled. He's manipulative. He acts out for attention because we've... Claire stopped herself, pressing her lips together. Because we've let him get away with too much. Is that what you really think? I think you need to remember your place. Claire's voice had turned cold again, the vulnerability shuddering away behind her executive mask. You're here to clean, that's all. I don't want you talking to Jason anymore. I don't want you in his room unless absolutely necessary. I don't want you... Her voice cracked slightly. I don't want you making him love you. The words struck Maria like a physical blow. Making him love you. As if love were a trick, a manipulation. Something stolen rather than given freely. I understand, Maria said quietly, though she didn't. Not really. Do you? Claire grabbed her designer bag from the counter. Because if I see anything like this again, you're fired. No reference. No severance. Just gone. Am I clear? Yes, Mrs. Miller. Claire left, her heels clicking violently against the floor. Maria stood alone in the gleaming kitchen, surrounded by appliances that cost more than her annual salary, and felt the walls closing in. Upstairs, she heard a door slam. Jason had been listening. Jason didn't come out of his room for 2 days. Maria heard the reports from the other staff, the gardener who saw Mrs. Miller carrying untouched meal trays back downstairs, the pool cleaner who mentioned the shouting that echoed through the house late at night, even Mrs. Patterson, who returned from her illness to find her student completely unresponsive, left after only 30 minutes, looking shaken. He just stared at the wall, she told Claire in the foyer, not knowing Maria was cleaning the nearby study. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't even acknowledge I was there. I can't work under these conditions. I'm sorry, but I have to resign. That made 6 tutors. Maria kept her distance as ordered, though it killed her. She cleaned the 2nd floor while Jason was supposedly doing schoolwork on the 3rd. She scrubbed the kitchen in the mornings before he came down for breakfast, except he didn't come down anymore. She became a ghost in the house, invisible by choice now rather than circumstance, but she still left notes, smaller now, more carefully hidden, tucked inside library books she knew he loved, slipped under the bathroom door, written on the back of grocery receipts and hidden in his coat pockets. Storms don't last forever. You are stronger than you know. I'm still here. She never knew if he found them. He never responded, but she kept writing anyway, because giving up on him felt like a betrayal worse than any rule she could break. On the 3rd day, David Miller came home early. Maria was vacuuming the living room when she heard his car in the driveway, the distinctive rumble of his Tesla. She quickly finished her work and tried to slip away, but his voice stopped her. You're Maria, correct? She turned. David Miller stood in the doorway, still in his suit, his tie loosened slightly. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Yes, Mr. Miller. He studied her for a long moment, and Maria fought the urge to look away. There was something different in his expression, not the dismissive indifference she was used to, but something more penetrating, evaluative. My wife says you've been getting too close to our son. It wasn't a question, but Maria nodded anyway. She says he's become attached to you, that it's inappropriate. David walked further into the room, his hands in his pockets. But I've been talking to Dr. Weinstein. He says Jason's shown more emotional progress in the last month than in the previous 6. And when I asked him what changed, he said he didn't know. But I think I do. Maria's heart began to race. My son stopped eating 2 days ago, David continued, his voice rough. He broke his iPad, threw his clothes out the window, and when Claire tried to talk to him, he told her, He paused, his jaw working. He told her he wishes we'd hired you to be his parents instead of him being stuck with us. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mr. Miller, I never said anything to turn him against you. I know. David held up a hand. I know you didn't. That's what makes this so damn complicated. He walked to the window, staring out at the manicured lawn. Do you have children, Maria? No, sir. Do you want them? The question surprised her. Someday, yes. If I'm blessed. Let me tell you something about being a parent, David said, still facing the window. They don't prepare you for it. Not really. You think if you provide everything, food, shelter, education, opportunities, that's enough. You think love is making sure they have every advantage you didn't have. He turned to face her. My father was a drunk, beat me regularly. I swore I'd never be like him. I'd give my kid everything. Everything. You have, Mr. Miller. No. His voice cracked. No, I haven't. Because the one thing Jason needs, I don't know how to give. I don't know how to just be there. How to sit and listen and not try to fix everything. How to... He stopped, his composure slipping. How to do what apparently comes naturally to a housekeeper who's known him for 2 months. Maria didn't know what to say. This raw honesty from David Miller felt like standing too close to an open wound. I'm not asking you to solve this, David continued. I'm not asking you to raise my son. But I am asking... He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. I'm asking for your help. Because clearly, whatever Claire and I are doing isn't working. And I'm tired of watching my son suffer because I'm too proud or too stupid to admit I don't have all the answers. What about Mrs. Miller? Let me worry about Claire. David's expression hardened slightly. She's protective, defensive. She sees you as a threat because you're succeeding where she feels she's failed. But she wants what's best for Jason. We both do. We're just... He trailed off. Lost. Maria offered quietly. Yeah. David let out a bitter laugh. 2 of the most successful people in Los Angeles, and we can't figure out how to connect with our own kid. It's pathetic. It's not pathetic. It's human. David looked at her sharply. Then his expression softened. Talk to him. Please. Help him understand we're not monsters. We're just lost, Maria repeated. Yes. Maria thought of Claire's warning, of her job hanging by a thread, of the risk she'd be taking. Then she thought of Jason's face in that photograph, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. I'll talk to him, she said. Jason's door was locked. Maria knocked softly, 3 times, the same pattern she'd developed over their weeks together, a code between them. Go away, came the muffled response. It's me, Maria. Silence. Then the sound of footsteps, the click of a lock turning. The door opened just wide enough for her to see half of Jason's face, red-rimmed eyes peering out suspiciously. Did she send you? My mom. Your father asked me to check on you. But I'm here because I want to be. Jason considered this, then opened the door wider. Maria's breath caught at the state of the room. Clothes were strewn everywhere. Books lay scattered across the floor, their pages bent. The curtains were drawn, making the space dark and cave-like despite the afternoon sun outside. And the walls? Jason's beautiful drawings had been torn down, ripped into pieces that littered the carpet like fallen leaves. Oh, Jason, I don't want to talk about it. He climbed back onto his bed, pulling his knees to his chest. That same defensive position she'd found him in behind the curtain. You're not supposed to be here anyway. She said you can't talk to me anymore. Maria stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Sometimes rules need to be broken. You'll get fired. Maybe, but you're worth the risk. She began picking up the torn drawings, handling each piece with care. Don't. Jason's voice was sharp. Just leave them. They're garbage anyway. They're not garbage. They're your feelings, your truth. My truth is I hate them. The words came out venomous. I hate this house and I hate my life and I hate... His voice broke. I hate that the only person who's ever been nice to me is someone they pay to clean toilets. Maria flinched at the cruelty of the statement, not because it hurt her, but because she heard the self-loathing underneath it. Jason was angry at himself for needing her, for loving someone he thought he wasn't supposed to love. Jason, look at me. He refused, burying his face in his knees. Maria sat on the edge of his bed. When I first came to America, I was so angry. Angry at my mother for being sick. Angry at my father for dying and leaving us with nothing. Angry at myself for having to leave everything I knew. She paused. I worked in a restaurant, washing dishes. The chef, he was cruel, called me stupid because my English wasn't good, made me work double shifts without overtime. One day, I broke down crying in the storage room. Jason lifted his head slightly, listening. The owner found me. This old Vietnamese man named Mr. Nguyen. He sat with me, didn't say anything at first. Then he told me, anger is just love with nowhere to go. I didn't understand at first, but then he explained, when we love something or someone and can't reach them, can't make them understand, that love turns into anger. It's easier to be mad than to be heartbroken. I don't love them, Jason whispered. I can't. You do. That's why this hurts so much. Maria reached out slowly, giving him time to reject her. When he didn't move away, she placed her hand over his. You love them, and you need them, and they don't know how to show up for you. That's not your fault. Then whose fault is it? Maybe nobody's. Maybe they're just broken in different ways. Your father told me something today. He said he doesn't know how to be the parent you need because his own father hurt him badly. Your mother works so hard because she's trying to prove something to herself and the world. They're both carrying pain, Jason, just like you. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't. But understanding doesn't mean accepting. It just means seeing the whole picture. Maria squeezed his hand. You know what else your father told me? That you said you wish I was your parent instead of them. Jason's face flushed red. I was mad. I know. But Jason, I can't be your parent. I can be your friend. I can care about you. But they're your family. And somewhere under all this hurt and anger, there's still a chance for healing. What if I don't want to heal? What if I just want to stay angry? Maria smiled sadly. You can stay angry, but anger is exhausting and lonely, and it doesn't hurt them nearly as much as it hurts you. Jason was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, she said you can't talk to me anymore. She said if you do, she'll fire you. She did say that. So why are you here? Why risk it? Maria thought of her mother in Mexico, of the medication money that depended on this job. She thought of her tiny apartment, her carefully saved dollars, her fragile existence in this country. Then she thought of Jason's smile in that photograph, of his laughter during their cooking lesson, of the notes he'd left her. Because some things matter more than safety, she said simply. You matter more. Jason's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry I said that thing about the toilets. I didn't mean. I know. Maria pulled him into a hug, feeling his thin body shake with sobs. I know, mijo. I know. They sat like that for a long time, while outside the California sun moved across the sky and shadows lengthened across the torn drawings on the floor. Finally, Jason pulled back, wiping his eyes. What do I do now? Now we clean up this mess together, and then maybe you come downstairs and eat something. And then, Maria paused, then maybe you try talking to your parents. Really talking. What would I even say? The truth. Tell them you're hurting. Tell them what you need. Jason looked doubtful. And if they don't listen, then we try again and again. Until they do. The letter took Maria 3 hours to write. She sat at her small kitchen table in her studio apartment, surrounded by crumpled paper and crossed-out attempts, struggling to find the right words in her imperfect English. Her phone sat nearby, her mother's last text message still glowing on the screen. Estás bien, mija? You sound worried. She was worried, terrified, actually, because what she was about to do could cost her everything. But Jason's face kept appearing in her mind, his tear-stained cheeks, his desperate eyes, his small voice asking, what if they don't listen? Maria picked up her pen again and began to write. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Miller, I know I am just the housekeeper. I know I am not supposed to have opinions about your family, but I cannot stay quiet anymore because Jason is suffering and you do not see it. I don't write this to be disrespectful. I write this because I care about your son, and because someone needs to tell you the truth that nobody else will say. Jason is not a problem child. He is a lonely child. There is a difference. Every day I watch him wait for you to come home. Every day I see his face when you are too busy to notice him. He has every toy, every expensive thing, but none of it matters because what he needs cannot be bought. He needs you to sit with him, to ask about his day and really listen, to see his drawings and understand what they mean, to know that he is afraid of the dark and loves stories about space and wants to learn Spanish and makes jokes that nobody hears. You are good people. You work hard. You provide for him. But providing is not the same as being present. I grew up poor in Mexico. My family had almost nothing. But I was never lonely because my mother, even when she was tired from working in the fields, would sit with us at night and tell stories. My father, before he died, would dance with me in the kitchen. We had no money, but we had each other. Jason has everything except that. I know you love him. I see it in the worry on your faces when you think nobody is watching. I hear it in your voices when you talk to his doctors. But Jason cannot feel your love through your schedules and your absences, and your phone calls from other cities. Love is not what you provide. Love is what you give of yourself. I am probably fired for writing this letter. I understand. But before I go, I need you to know. Your son is brilliant and funny and kind. He is sensitive and creative and so brave. He just needs you to see him. Really see him. Please don't let him grow up thinking that success is more important than being loved. Please don't let him believe that he is not worth your time, because he is worth everything. With respect, Maria Lopez. She folded the letter carefully, her hands shaking. Then she placed it in an envelope, wrote Mr. and Mrs. Miller on the front, and set it on the table. Tomorrow was Sunday, her day off. She would drop the letter at the house early in the morning, leave it somewhere Claire would find it, and then she would wait to see if she still had a job on Monday. Maria looked around her tiny apartment, at the hot plate where she cooked her meals, at the cot that served as her bed, at the picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe that had traveled with her from Mexico. She thought of her mother, of the medication that depended on Maria's income, of the precarious life she'd built here. She thought of Jason, and she knew, even if it cost her everything, she'd made the right choice. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Are you okay? I heard you leave. Jason. He must have gotten her number from her employee file somehow. Smart kid. She typed back, I'm okay, mijo. Sleep well. Everything will be okay. Promise. Maria stared at that word, promise, knowing she had no right to make guarantees about things beyond her control. But she typed anyway. I promise to try. That's all anyone can do. That's what you told me. Try and try again until they listen. Yes, I'm scared. Me too. But brave people are scared and do it anyway. A long pause. Then, thank you for being brave for me. Maria's eyes blurred with tears. She set down the phone and looked at the letter on the table, at the words that might destroy her life or possibly, hopefully, save a child. Outside, Los Angeles hummed with its endless energy. Millions of people living their lives, chasing their dreams, surviving their struggles, and in a small studio apartment, a housekeeper who'd crossed borders and broken rules sat alone, praying that love would be enough, that truth would matter, that someone, finally, would listen. The next morning, Maria woke before dawn. She dressed carefully, as if preparing for something sacred. She picked up the letter, held it against her heart for a moment, then walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. The Miller estate was quiet when she arrived. She let herself in through the service entrance, her hands steady now, her decision made. She walked through the silent house one more time, through the kitchen where she'd taught Jason to cook, past the library where they'd talked about being different, up the stairs where he'd first told her he needed someone to stay. She left the letter on the kitchen counter, propped against the coffee maker where Claire would find it first thing. Then Maria Lopez, invisible no more, walked out of the mansion and waited for the world to change. Maria didn't sleep Sunday night. She lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows from passing cars slide across the walls. Her phone sat silent beside her. No calls, no texts, no indication whether the letter had been found, read, or simply thrown away. At 5:47 a.m., she gave up on sleep. She made coffee on her hot plate, watching the steam rise in the early morning light. At 7:15 a.m., she dressed in her uniform and took the bus to Beverly Hills. With each passing mile, her anxiety grew. The house was silent when she arrived, too silent. Maria punched in her time card, gathered her cleaning supplies out of habit, and tried to steady her trembling hands. Maria! She spun around. Claire Miller stood in the doorway, still in her bathrobe, her face free of makeup. Maria had never seen her look so raw, so human. Mrs. Miller, I read your letter. Claire's voice was hoarse. I read it yesterday morning, and then I read it again. And again. She stepped closer. Do you have any idea what you've done? Maria's heart hammered. I'm sorry if you broke me. Claire's voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. You shattered everything I thought I knew about myself, about my parenting, with your broken English and your simple truths. Her composure was completely gone. I've been up for 2 days, thinking, crying, fighting with David, fighting with myself. Mrs. Miller, my son apologized to me last night. Claire continued. A 9-year-old child apologized for needing love. What kind of mother am I that my child thinks he needs to apologize for wanting to be noticed? Maria didn't answer. Couldn't answer. I swore I'd never be like my own mother. Cold and distant, Claire said, wiping her eyes. But you know what's worse than being cold? Being absent. I chose board meetings over bedtime stories, conference calls over my child. The silence stretched between them. I want to fire you, Claire finally said, because every time I look at you, I'm reminded of what you saw that I missed, of how a stranger loved my son better than I did. She pulled out a tissue. But David wants to hire you full-time, not as a housekeeper, as someone who actually helps Jason, and me, and you, Maria asked quietly. What do you want? Claire's expression cycled through emotions, anger, shame, grief, hope. I want to learn, she finally said. I want you to teach me how to see my own son the way you see him. I want a second chance to be the mother he deserves. But I don't know how, and I'm terrified it's too late. It's not too late, Maria said gently. It's never too late to start showing up. Footsteps on the stairs made them both turn. Jason appeared in the doorway, his hair messy from sleep, wearing his astronaut pajamas. He stopped when he saw them together, uncertain. Mom? Claire's face crumpled. She took tentative steps toward her son, then knelt in front of him, at his level, looking directly into his eyes. Jason, I'm so sorry. The words came out choked, desperate. I've been a terrible mother. I've been absent and distracted and made you think you weren't important. But you are. You're the most important thing in my life. I forgot to show you. Tears streamed down her face. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. If you'll let me. It's not too late, Jason whispered. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around his mother's neck. Claire sobbed, clutching him like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. Maria quietly began to back away, but Jason's voice stopped her. Maria, don't go, please. You promised you'd stay. Claire looked up at Maria, her careful armor stripped away. Something passed between them. Understanding, respect, maybe even the beginning of trust. Stay, Claire said softly. Please, we need you. I need you to help me learn how to be present. David Miller appeared in the doorway. He took in the scene and crossed the room, kneeling beside his wife and son. Hesitantly, wonderingly, they made space for Maria too. She sat on the floor with them, this broken and healing family. So we start now, Maria said. Someone asked Jason about his day yesterday. Really ask, and then really listen. Claire took a shaky breath. Jason, what did you do yesterday? I drew something, Jason said quietly. Want to see? Yes, Claire said, her voice full of emotion. Yes, I really do. Jason ran from the room and returned with a piece of paper, a new drawing, colored carefully. It showed 4 people holding hands, a man, a woman, a boy, and another woman in a simple dress, all smiling. Above them, in Jason's handwriting, my real family. Claire pressed her hand to her mouth, fresh tears falling. It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Can we put it on the refrigerator? Jason asked nervously. Absolutely, David said, wrapping his arm around Claire. Together, all 4 of them walked to the kitchen and hung Jason's drawing with a magnet. It looked out of place among the spotless steel and granite. It looked like hope. It looked like home. Maria thought about the risk she'd taken, how close she'd come to losing everything. But watching this family take their first uncertain steps toward healing, she knew she'd gained something far more valuable. She'd gained proof that love, real, brave, honest love, could transform anything, even the coldest of houses, even the most broken of hearts. Outside, the California sun rose higher, painting the mansion in golden light, and inside, a housekeeper, a problem child, and 2 parents who'd forgotten how to be present began the hard, beautiful work of becoming a family. Not perfect, but present, and that was everything. The end. Did you like this story? Would you have done anything differently? Tell me in the comments. See you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe now to receive more exciting stories that you won't want to miss. Thank you very much.